Hey, it's Multi-Fanfic Day here. I just learned that I have 100 subscribers. Even though my subscriber limit says it's 89, that is incorrect and YouTube is having problems. And my actual amount of subscribers is 100. And my mind was totally blown. And I thought I just wasn't getting subscribers. And now I'm really happy that actually I reached 100 in like a 4-day period or whatever. And that's really awesome. Anyways, I've spent 20 seconds on this intro, which is really long for me. So this is Chapter 10 of The Ballad of Echo the Diamond Dog by Rust, and it's called Rolling Over. I absent-mindedly scratched a bit of sawdust from my fur as I sat in the waiting room. A nearby magazine lay on a low, ugly table. Curious to gain more knowledge of equestrian culture, I picked it up. Cosmopolitan. And it was 7 months old. I resisted the urge to laugh, then quickly flipped it open. No judging. It's in the name of science. Wethoof was not large enough to have a proper hospital, but in light of its situation, it had expanded the local doctor's office into a small clinic. It was here where I waited to see Daring do after a hard day's work. Captain Tithus, who was quite possibly a bigger troll than Celestia herself, really had explained nothing of his plan regarding the role of Gingersnap, and I would play against the Hydras. Instead, he'd kicked me out to work on the gate, and taken Ginger with him to meet the mayor. The work itself was quite easy for me. My new body was much stronger than my old one, and I found myself lifting heavy piles of lumber to and fro around the worksite with almost no effort. The repair crew already there had been rather hostile to me, shooting looks at me that ranged from fear to outright hatred. Luckily for me, the squad of guards I had been sent with reassured them that I would be no trouble. It seems that I've made a better impression on them than I thought. Aha! And now he's done the foodstuffs, so now the guard, which is basically all the authority, except for the mayor, likes him. So the lower civilians can't do shit. Or at least they would treat me with respect while I was in Tithus' good graces. I wouldn't have minded the work or the evil looks from the civilians so much, but one of my escorts from the first night, Poppy, stood by and did nothing but watch me the whole time. This reminded me that while I was tolerated, I was not trusted. We'd finished work at sunset. The gaping hole in the gate had been repaired quite a bit, and the four-pony at the site had even given me a muttered word of thanks for speeding up the process significantly. The squad leader, a charcoal unicorn named Baritone, had granted me the rest of the day off, provided I had supervision. Baritone seemed to like me the best there, and had been one of the few ponies at the site that would actually approach me. I'd then walked here to the clinic, with Popper keeping pace alongside. He'd seen the damage I'd done while it was still smoking, and he constantly reminded me of his skepticism by remaining on edge, even now as we waited to be let into Daring's room. I glanced up from the magazine. He was watching me evenly from across the room, gently tapping his hoof on the chair. I gave him a smile. He winced, and his tapping became rather erratic. Whoops, I bared my fangs at him. So, nice weather we're having? I tried. His eyes narrowed. It's been raining all day. I shrugged. I like rain. He grunted and said nothing else. Discouraged, I looked around the waiting room again. Tacky wallpaper, a cheesy song playing from somewhere that suspiciously sounded like elevator music. Yeah, I might as well have been on Earth. I flipped over a few more pages in the magazine. A colorful article caught my attention. How to please your stallion in 10 exciting ways. Whoa. They even had diagrams. Wait. What's this? My eyes widened in horror as I saw number 3. Number 3. The magazine made a loud smack as it hit the wall on the opposite side of the room. Popper jumped out of his chair, eyes wide, tense for action. I can understand his reaction, 'cause Rule 34, by fans, is way different than Rule 34 canon. That's just creepy. What? What is it? I pointed to the offending garbage on the floor and shuddered. Number 3! He sighed and returned to his chair, somewhat annoyed by the disturbance. The awkward silence resumed. I clicked my tongue in boredom. Popper's ears flicked back to his head at the noise, then slowly adjusted themselves again. Interesting. Click. Again, the Pegasi's ears twitched. Click. Popper shot me a look that said, indicated restrained temper. It says said indicated. There's a lot of really weird typos in this. But it hasn't been since, like, Chapter 8. After Chapter 8, they started getting typos. I returned his expression by giving him a small, friendly wave across the room, at which he scowled. Click. His eye twitched involuntarily, resisting the urge to begin shaking with laughter. This was priceless. Click. 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 Popper narrowed his eyes at me. If you do that one more time, I swear I'm going to... Click. Seriously, knock that... Click. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Click, 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 click. The irritated Pegasus slumped down into his chair and covered his ears with his wings. He punctuated his frustration with a barely concealed groan. I knew when to stop. Everyone has a limit, and I'd had no intention of really pissing him off. Even though he didn't trust me, that didn't mean I couldn't try and interact with him. I couldn't try and interact as if nothing were amiss. Odd phrasing. I twiddled my thumbs and entertained myself with drawing pictures in the air. I was midway through a realistic representation of myself riding an armored Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was surfing through the stars on top of a giant rocket ship that was participating in a space battle against the Galactic Empire, when I heard my name being called. Mr. Echo? Write this! Oh my! I turned to find a blightingly white mare standing in the entrance to the waiting room, looking at me with a confused expression on her face. I assumed she worked here as a nurse or something. I stood up, easily towering over her. Problem, miss? She looked completely flabbergasted. You're... I activated my patented act like a gentleman mode. A diamond dog, madam. I am only too aware of that, as well as the stigma it regrettably seems to bring. I only get reminded of that fact on a regular basis, you see. Now, I believe my adventurous companion, for whom I have gone to great lengths to instate in your care, is due for a visit. Would it be acceptable for my escort to wait here? I shan't be too long. He even said shan't. Vegeta. What's the scouter say about his sophistication level? I do declare, it's exceeded 9,000! Indeed. Yeah. The mayor's... It's exceeded 9,000! I do declare. This author is awesome. The mayor stammered some more before finally giving her head a simple shake, giving up any attempt at trying to rationalize the situation. Right. This way, please. I gave a simple two-finger salute to Popper, who looked rather relieved that I'd be out of his mane for a while. I ambled along at her side, arms clasped behind my back. We passed through a newly constructed hallway, the tiled floor cool on my paws. I could smell the familiar scent of fresh paint. It was interesting to note how well these ponies adapted to change. A few weeks ago this had been a regular village, but the mare trotting by my side seemed quite at ease, or at least at ease as she could be in my presence. Nice weather we've been having. She shot me a quizzical look, eyeing the floating characters with half interest, half wonder. It's been raining all day. I like the rain. It's a peculiarity I've had for as long as I can remember. The worse the weather, the better I feel. And due to the constant tropical drizzle, I was feeling rather chipper. That's interesting. Indeed it is, madam. Indeed it is. I whistled the tune from Singin' in the Rain as softly as I could. Perhaps it's just a quirk of mine, but I'd always loved extreme weather. Serious thunderstorms? No problem. I'd be sitting on my front stoop with a bowl of popcorn, watching the lightning. Why don't you go and dance in it? God! You're so low-core. Punishing blizzard? Bitch, please! I'd be making snow angels in the street while nobody dared drive. Gale force winds? Excellent. I can try out my homemade wingsuit off the roof now. I know, I'm weird like that. We rounded a corner, passing underneath a flickering light. A few doors down on the left, the mayor stopped and opened up a room, and waved me in. I made an elegant bow before proceeding through. There were no lights on. Rather, the single occupant had elected to simply open up the shades and let in the ambient light from the overcast skies. Darrington was sitting up in the bed, wearing a hospital gown for some reason. Why was she wearing that? Didn't ponies usually go around in the buff anyway? Daring immediately perked up from where she'd been looking out of the window. Her smile lit up the room quite a bit. Well, hey there, fuzzball. Heard you got yourself into a bit of trouble getting me here, huh? Thanks for that, by the way. I guess we're even again. Ah, yes, it was good to have her back. Any pony else called me that was cruising for a bruising? I pulled up a chair from the wall and sat beside her bed, leaning back to brush a few more flakes of sawdust from my fur. If by trouble you mean I've been unofficially drafted into the town guard to fight off an entire nest of hydras, pissed off a lot of ponies, and burned a massive hole in the only defense they have, then yes, I'm in a bit of trouble. Daring sheepishly rubbed the back of her neck. Maybe I should have told you about this little place, huh? Probably. Sorry, it's just... She waved a hoof around. I didn't really think we'd be here for a while yet. After the Temple of Chaos, we were going to hit all the other places I've not been able to get at. But it's probably for the best that we're here now. I was getting tired of the rainforest anyway. I blew a sigh of air out of my nose. I know. In return for teaching me how to read and write. By the way, I'm getting quite a few looks for that. Or maybe it's the whole glowing claws thing that you've got going on there. Glowing claws of death thing that you've going on there. A disembodied but all too familiar voice said, By the way, I was most impressed with the way you lit them on fire. I had no idea that was even possible. Deering and I abruptly began looking around for the source. Up here, silly fillies! Who's this? We looked up there, reclining upside down on the ceiling in a lawn chair, while sipping a glass of chocolate milk, which was also defying physics, was the familiar the familiar figure of a half-grown Draconicus. He winked at us. My, both of you would be positively horrified at finding Waldo, said Disarray. I stood up and pointed an accusing finger at him. For your information, he's very hard to spot sometimes. And furthermore, where were you when I was stuck outside the gate? You could have gotten me in. Wait, who's Waldo? Daring scratched her forehead, confused. Where is he, you mean? Just answer the question. He gave a huff and drank the glass containing the milk, before tapping a lobster claw against the remaining solid beverage and tossing it outside an open window. There was a small flash of light and a muffled explosion as it blew up on end pack somewhere outside. Did I not say I'd be of assistance when you needed me? Not when it's just convenient for me to open a door. You didn't need me then, otherwise you'd still be outside, scratching at the door. Damn, he had a point. I sat back down hard. Good dog. Now I believe we have a rather tricky matter on our paws. Don't you mean hooves? Asked Daring. Not in our case. I wiggled my fingers around. Thumbs for the win! Quite. Disarray stroked his multi-hued mustache thoughtfully. Anyway, our canine friend here has gotten himself into a barrel, and not the ones with arrows on them that spin around and shoot you right back out. Daring was once again lost in the dust. I assume those are the good kinds of barrel? Depends on whether or not you're a gorilla wearing a tie. Okay. Disarray gave a polite cough. Anyway, Echo, what exactly are you going to be doing about this? A hydra alone is a formidable threat, but a whole nest of them? This town may have walls, but once those little buggers grow up, it's game over for every pony. What do you mean? Over 100 fully grown hydras are more than capable of knocking this wall down. What I mean is that you're going to have to solve this problem, and fast. I don't know. I have little knowledge of hydras, but I'll assume the basics. Don't cut off their heads. It's probably the most I can offer. Daringdo nodded. Hydras are bad news if that happens. It's bad enough they have 4 heads, but more than that, it's ridiculous. I looked at her, somewhat confused. You have experience with them? She nodded again, and stretched her bandaged wing a little. Quite a few years ago, I was investigating a possible dig site in Froggy Bottom Bog. 2 of the biggest hydras you ever see rose out of the mud and chased me halfway to Canterlot. I accidentally ended up killing one, although it was by accident. Froggy Bottom Bog? That meant the hydra that went after the elements of harmony was the survivor of the encounter with the intrepid explorer. Interesting. How did you manage to kill it? Her face went grim. Buried in a rock slide. It wasn't pretty. So if one wishes to take down a hydra, don't even bother with the heads. Just damage the body. Well, I think it's safe to say that I've learned something today. I thought for a moment. Captain Tithus apparently has a plan to wipe them out once and for all. He didn't say what it was, though, outside the fact that Gingersnap and myself are required to make it work, as bait. Disarray chuckled from his physics-defying position on the ceiling. Huh. Well, you're completely bucked, then, I declared at him. Don't remind me. It's bad enough that I might die very shortly, but I have to do it alongside a mare that hates my guts and probably will kill me before the Hydras do. Wait, Gingersnap? mused Daring. But the Snap family hates diamond dogs. I knew it! Although, no diamond dogs kill their family, but they hate families. It's still personal, which was my final thing. I've noticed. She almost killed you simply to deny me entry to Wethoof. What's up with that, anyway? A lot of ponies around here seem to really dislike us. Daring Do looked down solemnly at her covers. Long before I came to the great southern rainforest, the local pack of diamond dogs kidnapped Ginger's mother and forced her into slavery, digging up gems for them in their den. Yeah! Okay. The town raised a Mishila. It's Matilla, right? No, it's militia, because of how it's spelled. Tried to get her back, but she was killed in the resulting battle below ground. Yes! From what I've heard, the incident had quite an impact on Wethoof. Wait, there's a local pack of diamond dogs? There was a pack. The Green Claw pack, but you won't find them around anymore, stated Disarray. Oh, that was Disarray, who genuinely looked troubled about it. I saw the whole thing from my prison. It was terrible. What? What happened to them? The mayor went mad with grief. Slaughtered them all. Disarray? What? It's true. You know very well what happened. The smoke could have been seen for miles in any direction. The news even reached Stalliongrad, so I'm told. Wait. Why did the mayor go crazy? Is this the same one who outlawed my kind from Wethoof? Aye, said the Draconicus. Mayor Frost Snap is Ginger's father. Well, shit! This explains a lot. Now I can see where all this hate is coming from. No wonder Ginger didn't let me in the gate. This Mayor Frostsnap probably wanted to kill me where I sat, and I was willing to bet money that it was only because of Captain Tithus that I hadn't been skinned and mounted over the Snap family fireplace. Haters. That's hatters, by the way. I suddenly felt a twinge of gratitude to the grizzled officer. He said he was going to speak with the mayor earlier today. No doubt about my presence in town. We didn't say much after that. Pleasantries were exchanged, and I soon learned that Daring Do would be released from the hospital in a few days. After that, she was free to leave whenever she wished. I, on the other paw, was not. The adventuring mare insisted she be staying here in the meantime, though, regardless of the hydropod problem. That's what friends are for, to support each other when they need it, she'd said, and that was that. Disarray had once again vanished, and neither of us knew where he'd gone. The only evidence of him ever being in the room was the small, smoldering crater outside the clinic, where he'd tossed his explosive chocolate milk. And so, I'd made my way back through the town to the barracks, Popper once again by my side. As we walked through Wethoof, I have to admit that I was very impressed with what I saw. The town was unlike anything I'd seen in the show. The entire settlement was built on a series of round, raised platforms, a few feet off the ground. Small bridges and walkways connected them all together, like a giant group of wooden lily pads. From what I could gather, the town had been built in a shallow depression, so the elevation was probably to avoid the flash flooding that rainforest storms were known for bringing. Halfway through town, the constant drizzle that had been gently pattering down all day suddenly increased in strength. Instead of a gentle shower, buckets began pouring down. "Step on it! The weather team scheduled a big storm on Tithus's orders," said Popper. I peered up into the clouds, and, sure enough, I picked out the shapes of a few of the civilian Pegasi, bucking the thick, dark cover to make it rain. Intrigued, I made a mental note to begin looking into how they did that. Maybe it was magic, or something else entirely. I obliged my surly shadow, and double-timed it back to the barracks on all fours. Surprisingly, I outdistanced him by a large margin. When he caught up to me, I was leaning nonchalantly by the door, my hood down and my face angled up to the rain. It felt refreshing to have the warm, wet drops soak my fur, though, and I didn't mind it in the slightest. I held the door open for the sopping wet Pegasi, and he grunted on obligatory thanks. The cavernous dining hall was now chock full of the entire Wet-Hoof Guard. In the midst of various activities, a group of Pegasi were busy removing soaking wet armor by the fireplace on the far end of the hall, and one of them was busy giving a report to Captain Tithus, who looked rather grim. I assumed this was to be the scouting group he'd sent out earlier that day. Judging by the clenching jaw, the news he was receiving wasn't favorable. I'd heard a voice call my name. I pricked my ears, seeking the source. It came from a circle of couches and haphazardly scattered chairs that I judged to act as some sort of common room, or a place for the off-duty guards' ponies to relax. Sure enough, there was a moderate group there, and a familiar big brown stallion removed himself from a comfortable-looking couch and trotted over. "Hello," Coconut said brightly. "Come with me, mate. We'll dry you off by the fire and get you something warm to drink. Any preferences?" He clapped a hoof on my back, making a very wet smacking noise akin to slamming a raw steak on a countertop. "You wouldn't happen to have any cider from Sweet Apple Acres, would you?" He grinned. "I reckon we got a keg left. They made a huge amount this year, so I'm told. Something to do with a competition or the like. You want it hot? So help you Celestia, if it isn't hot, I'll eat your limbs," I joked. Coconut flinched back suddenly. You really wouldn't do that, would you? You wouldn't really serve me cold apple cider on a day like this, would you?" The stallion gave me a hard stare for a moment, then promptly burst out laughing. "Ha ha! Good one, mate. You really had me going there for a second. I'll get you your cider. Just plop down by the fire and warm your rump." He gave me a wink and trotted off to the kitchens. I shook some water from my coat and padded softly across the hall to the fire. Again I was somewhat disturbed by the attention I was getting. Quite a few of the guards looked up from their various activities, and while nowhere near as hostile as the town folks, still regarded me with some suspicion. I felt almost like an animal at a circus, doing tricks for treats to avoid the lash of a whip. The fire was roaring hot, at least. I plopped myself down onto my haunches, back to the inferno. I removed my tattered sweatshirt and laid it on the fireplace to dry off, while the sopping fur on my body began to steam from the sudden evaporation. The surrounding Pegasi patrol gave me a brief nod before carrying on with their disarmament. What the fuck? Disarmament. That's really weird. Disarmament. Removing their metal cuirasses and seemingly Roman-style helmets. Their armor was patchy, a dull gray, freshly forged, and lacked none of the ornamentation I'd seen on the Royal Guard regalia. In fact, Tithus was the only pony in the building who owned a suit of armor that didn't seem haphazardly slopped together. I eyed the unicorn officer from my spot by the fire. His gear was a darker gray, polished but covered in countless nicks and dents that indicated he'd seen more than his fair share of action. A gleaming golden sun, almost the same color as his coat, reflected the firelight from its position on his chest. His feathered helmet crest had 2 streaks of white shot through it. Maybe it was some kind of ranking system, or a badge of honor. He noticed me sizing him up, and strode over to me, surprisingly taking a seat by my side. A few of the nearby guards gave us funny looks, but besides that, they minded their own business. "You've got the eyes of a soldier," the stallion said simply. He wasn't looking at me, rather. He was looking at his little army, scattered around the hall, laughing and relaxing with their time off. "I've served some time, yes," he grunted. "Oh, wasn't aware the Diamond Dogs had fuck, I can't say this. Militarized." "Who said anything about serving with them, sir?" Tithus gave me a queer look. I was getting a lot of those lately. "If not them, then who?" I shrugged. Half the truth is better than none of the truth, as they say. "Monkeys, sir. Tall, bipedal, hairless, tailless monkeys." He gave out a harsh bark of laughter, then realized I was completely serious. "Where did you say you were from?" "Uh-oh. Think fast. Code Red!" I paused and pieced together a reasonable alibi. "The more vague, the better." "Very, very far away. A different land, if you will. This is why I'm such an oddity to you ponies. My kind are quite different from equestrian diamond dogs. Well, technically I wasn't lying. Applejack would be proud. Ha ha ha, Gusta. Another grunt. Huh, no kiddin'. So if you're from so far away, why are you here? In Wethoof? That would be because of the gate incident, sir. No, in Equestria. I thought for a moment. I was here because the Avatar of Chaos and Disharmony had penalty kicked me across the dimensional divide to be his greatest practical joke. But I didn't have to be in Equestria. I could go wherever I wanted. There were nations beyond its borders. This much I knew. As far as I knew, I was on an entirely new planet. Oceans, continents, mountain ranges, the whole 9 yards. But why was I here? Then it hit me. Knowledge. Captain Tithus sighed a bit and leaned back towards the fire. An admirable goal. Were I a younger colt, I might have undertaken such a quest myself, had I been not so hot-headed and joined the guard. I had a question that had been burning in my mind since we first met, and I felt this was a good time to ask it. Captain, why are you so tolerant of me? I believe in judgment based from actions. He gently tapped a hoof a few times against the floor. You may have endangered the lives of these ponies, but you've been willing to work to right that wrong. And have been nothing but respectful to us, despite the bias this town has against you. You've earned my respect, Echo. Don't lose it. And with that, the golden stallion heaved himself up to his hooves, and slowly trotted away to another group of Pegasi that had just come from the storm. Well, looks like you've made a good impression. Coconut popped up at my side, 2 stains of a frothing amber liquid inside. He hoofed one over to me, and I delicately swallowed it up in my paw. I inhaled the steaming beverage deeply. It smelled of tangy, inciting, succulent sweet apples, unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. This wasn't just due to my enhanced smell of scents either. This actually smelled like happiness. I took a small sip. The ambrosia melted down my throat, tickling and burning and soothing all at once. It hit my belly, and I felt a warm glow emit from my very core. I felt like singing and dancing and falling asleep at the same time! The world suddenly became much friendlier. Whoa, this stuff is like crack. This could be dangerous. Maybe I shouldn't have any more. Bucket! I took a massive gulp. Fit for the gods! That's some good cider, I wrote in the air. Coconut took a swig from his own stein, letting out a contented sigh. Too right. Sweet Apple Acres makes each batch better than the last one. It never gets old. I took another long look around the hall. Suddenly, it didn't seem so intimidating with a hot drink in paw, and a new friend by my side. I was filled with a burst of childlike wonder as I watched the gods' ponies lounge around, telling stories, jokes, playing cards, or simply napping in the corner. You're right. It never gets old. Okay. End of chapter 10. Author's note. Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood author here. Don't worry, I don't bite. Much. Anyway, I am pleased to show you the story's first piece of fan art. That's right. Oh yeah. Now if you don't mind, I'm gonna fall into small child and rub his face in this. Whoa. This author, he's so hilarious. It's funny because the picture is terrible. Well, sort of. It's just stupid. Like the one that I'm using is totally not this picture. It's a much better picture. Sorry if the person who actually drew that is, like, watching this. It's a decent picture, but it's just terrible in comparison. Rub his face in it. I like that image. Just walking up to kids and rubbing their face in it. And then there's like... and then they're all like... The parents are like, child molester! He molested my son! Yes. I don't know. And then... yeah. My Australian accent was fading. It was like Irish, and it was... it wasn't Australian. I was just going back and forth between different accents. But I'm not doing even know the southern accent. Southern and Australian. So it's like kind of like this. I don't know. Maybe it's just a really... G'day there, mate. It's so complicated. Hey, you should try an American accent. Here, let's sound what that sounds like.